Hello and welcome back to Season 6, Episode 3 of Real Talk. I'm your host, Kelsey, here with Erin and Tess. I hope everyone had a relaxing spring break. Personally, I wish mine was a little longer. I could use it, but what can you do? With so many high school spring breaks coming up for Easter, it's important to acknowledge that other holidays happen during it too, like Passover, which starts the night of April 12th. So, who wants to talk about Passover?
I'm so excited to learn about it because, obviously we read the story every year, around Easter time, but I'm Christian, so I've never celebrated before, so I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it because, I am Jewish, but I'm, Jewish, I've done maybe 3 Seders in my life, and I couldn't tell you, anything about it.
I've done at least 21, but more than that because the first 2 nights they're the 2 Seders. But yeah, my family does celebrate Passover, and we do everything. We do the Seders. I also keep kosher for Passover, so no bread for the entire week, which I do get tired of. But I kind of see it as a fun challenge, which is, I don't know, I kind of enjoy it. I think leading up to it and after, I really enjoy it. But during it, why? I just want to eat bread, please.
I know that's fair. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the history of it and what it means?
Yeah. Okay. So Passover it's 8 days, and it always starts at sunset. And it's a holiday that celebrates the Jewish people being freed from slavery in Egypt. So it's a story from Exodus, where the Israelites, who were led by Moses, escaped slavery after a series of plagues, and so there are the plagues. There's a lot to the story. Sorry, I'm bad at explaining it.
10 plagues, right?
Yeah, the 10 plagues, and a big part of it is that you don't eat bread or anything that rises, because part of the stories is that when they're fleeing Egypt, they couldn't wait for the bread to rise, so they just had this flat bread. So we to remember that, we eat matzah the entire week, and we can't have anything that rises. We can, no bread, no crackers and cookies and everything.
Yeah, growing up, I never really did Seders or anything like that, but I had a couple friends who were pretty religious in the Jewish faith, and I remember they were like, hey, brought a sandwich, but psych, it's not on actual bread. And I was like, okay, pop off, queen. And I just remember being really confused, even though I was Jewish. I still am Jewish, but I didn't know anything about it. So I was just like, okay. But I also, it's why are they eating paper? And then I grew up a little bit more, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now.
So I do. Why am I eating paper? I'd say it's more like cardboard, I think.
Well,
okay.
Yeah.
I like matzah, but after a week, and one thing I think is interesting is that there are plenty of foods that just don't have bread in it to begin with, but they try and put it in everything, and it's I think all the time, why am I eating this thing and putting matzah in it when I could just eat other things that would never had it to begin with.
Yeah.
But there are some foods that I really like. There's fried matzah, which is just matzah and egg in a frying pan. That's really good. And there's some cakes that they kind of get around the no rising thing by it. They just don't rise. They're pretty dense, but they still taste pretty good. Pretty much everything's made with matzah meal.
Yeah. Is it a gluten-free situation? I know that my friends would be like, oh, as long as it doesn't have gluten. But I was like, does it still rise?
Yeah. A lot of kosher for Passover food does still have gluten in it, because matzah does, and there are gluten-free matzahs, which avoid gluten-free matzah if you can. But yes, there are a lot of things that if you're already gluten-free, then it doesn't have to be such a big change, because you're already avoiding bread, so you just don't have to eat the matzah either.
Yeah, I got you. I know. I remember, I had this friend in high school. I went to a Seder at his house one time, and I was eating the horseradish or something, and his mom was like, no, eat a little more. You probably deserve it. You probably deserve, like, the bitterness making up for it. And it's like,
Just
girl, who are you talking to? I don't need that in my mouth.
No, thank you, please.
yeah, all the things on the Seder plate are like symbolic, and so the horseradish is like the bitterness of like slavery, and so it's not supposed to. It's supposed to remind you of these things. I've kind of grown a little fond of horseradish, not much, like just a little bit, but I also like it on gefilte fish, which is definitely an acquired taste for a lot of people. If you don't know, it's like
Curious jar.
a fish ball, basically. So that I like it, but I understand if people don't.
Is it like rude if you don't want to eat some of the food that's on the plate?
No, it's not.
'Cause I'm like a super picky eater, so I think I'd die.
I wouldn't consider it rude, but also, so Seder means like order. And so all the things on the Seder plate you have, and you eat them in a specific order throughout the night. And a lot of them, like, you could just have like a tiny bit of horseradish, or the bitter herbs, you dip them in like salt water to remind you of like, tears and things. And but I think like gefilte fish is not something that's on the plate, so you would not have to eat that. I wouldn't be insulted if you don't eat anything, but like you can definitely just have like a nibble, and that's fine too.
Yeah. I'm sure we can talk about that more in detail some other time. I'm glad that we got to bring a little bit of light to this important holiday. Springtime isn't just filled with holidays, though. Many students see a noticeable change in their mental health. I know I am quite versed in the idea of seasonal depression and depression in general, and changing weather and kind of what that brings about. So what do you guys think about, all that?
I'm one of those people that it's like, it's so hard for me because I love spring because the sun's out and I'm happy. I love the sunshine. My like early childhood was in Florida, so like it feels like, I'm like, this is home, even though I objectively have lived in Delaware a lot longer.
It's okay.
But if it's raining, I don't want to leave my apartment. So it's like, it's a mix because it's nice that it's warm outside and that it's sunnier. But if it's raining, I won't leave.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really hard for me to motivate to do anything when in general, let's be so real, but especially when it's gloomy and gray out, it's like the world's not awake, so I don't need to be awake.
Exactly. I don't need to get out of bed. I can just watch Gilmore Girls for hours and hours and hours.
A few weeks ago, like the first kind of sunny day, before it was even, I think it was still February, but it was like warm day in February. My French professor, he was like, I was going to office hours with him afterwards, and he was like, "It's nice to see you smile." And I was like, "Oh!" I'm called out. And I was like, "King, you didn't have to do me like that."
I guess definitely like, beginning of March, I was like so sad, and then like the sun came out one day, and I was like, oh, maybe that I just actually needed light to touch my skin, and like I was just immediately so much better.
Yeah, I saw this post on SciChat. It was like, there is no drug stronger than the first like warm weather day of the year, and I was like, you know what? Hell yeah.
I need the sun because it was hot today, but it was like cloudy.
It was like humid. And
I would rather be
disgusting.
cold and sunny, I think, at some point.
Really?
Because like I want the sun. Like I was walking like in the winter time when it was already cold, and I felt the sun on my skin. I was like, life is beautiful. I'm shivering, but life is beautiful.
I feel like it really depends for me. I think, because like, I don't know, there are so many things that I have a greater almost motivation to do that I enjoy doing, but I just can't do that in the winter. Like, I like reading. My brain doesn't think I like reading, but I do enjoy reading, especially when it's nice out. I'll like bring a blanket to the green or something, or sit on the steps of old college, but like nothing like, I hate like when it's sunny, but it's cold, because it's like, I can't be outside, I'll die. We used to go to war, but I'll die. I don't know, it's just...
It's also just so nice to like see the flowers blooming and just like all the life that's around you, and like watching. I love animals, so like seeing the rabbits and the squirrels running by.
Yeah. I have a little old Tic Tac case that I put bird seed in. That I'll just like, I think it's in one of my purses that I don't use, so I should take it out of there. But I'll just like be like, there are birds, sprinkle, sprinkle.
That's such a good idea.
And it's like, am I in my Disney princess era? I think so.
Sounds like it.
But I don't know. Are there any things that you guys do to like kind of increase your happiness when it's warm out, especially? Like, what do you do once you're feeling that push of?
If I can be outside, I try to be outside, especially like when I have a lot of work to do, because I always have a lot of reading and writing. And sometimes you feel like you're sitting at a desk for hours in a dark room, and so like sometimes I'll just switch to like sitting. My apartment has like an outside area, like, and I'll just sit out there and do my homework. Or like I used to have a balcony in my other apartment. I'd like lay on the balcony and do homework. That way I'm like getting a little enjoyment even though I'm still doing work.
Yeah, just drowning in it.
Yeah, I've been like asking my friends anytime that it's warm, like, anybody just want to go sit on the ground with me? Like I really just, I need to feel the grass and the sun. And all my friends, like, they like, when it's warm, but they want to sit in the shade. I'm like, no, I need the sun to be directly on me to like photosynthesize.
No, literally.
Same way.
I need to become a plant and just like feel it in my veins, get that vitamin D, get that immune functioning up.
The first somewhat warm day, I dragged my friend out onto the green to like eat pizza while we were supposed to be studying, and then we stayed out there the whole time. It was so bad.
As you absolutely should. I'm glad we were able to have like a little bit of a mental health discussion as we continue to destigmatize it. Helping your emotional state isn't the only thing that's important to your headspace. Education is just as important, especially with everything going on in today's world. Let's dive in with our future teacher, Rachel, with Real Talk. Let's talk about that and learn more.
Hi, I'm Rachel Newman, and this is Real Talk, Let's Talk About It. Today we're going to talk about how President Donald Trump has recently initiated an executive order that directs the Secretary of Education to make all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education and return the authority to the states. How does that affect teachers and families, and what does this all mean? Let's talk about that. There are two parts to this policy change that are significant within the Department of Education. He's effectively dismantling it as the executive order outlines the transfer of the student loan management to the SBA, or Small Business Administration, and programs for students with disabilities to the Department of Health and Human Services. The other part outlines how President Trump issued Executive Order 14190 titled Ending Radical Indoctrination in K-12 Schooling, which prohibits the teaching of materials deemed anti-American or subversive, including topics related to gender ideology and critical race theory. This order reinstates the 1776 Commission to promote patriotic education. Miss Newman, what does reinstating the 1776 Commission mean? Let's take a closer look at that. By reinstating the 1776 Commission through Executive Order 14190, President Trump is reviving this initiative to shape how U.S. history and civics are taught in schools. This can mean schools may be encouraged, or even required, to use materials that focus on the Founding Fathers, American exceptionalism, and the positive aspects of U.S. history. Topics related to slavery, systemic racism, and past injustices may be downplayed or omitted in favor of highlighting American achievements and progress. Among all of this, there will be restrictions on certain historical perspectives, such as schools may be prohibited from using curricula that include the 1619 Project, which is not a federal policy, but rather guidelines which argue that slavery played a central role in shaping U.S. history. Critical race theory, or the CRT, and discussions about race and gender identity could be removed from history and social studies classes. Not necessarily important for elementary educators such as myself, but more important for policymakers. National standards for teaching civics, like the Commission, can introduce federal guidelines for what history teachers should cover, potentially overriding state and local standards. But Miss Newman, how will this affect you as a future teacher? I'm so glad you asked, random student over there. As an educator, I'm looking at how this can affect my future career. Potential implications for teachers include job security and funding, as the closure of the Department of Education may lead to uncertainties in federal funding allocations for various educational programs. School districts that rely heavily on federal funds might face budget cuts, potentially affecting teacher salaries and employment stability. Also, curriculum and instructional changes. With the prohibition of certain topics in the classroom, teachers may need to adjust their curricula to comply with new federal guidelines. This could involve omitting or altering lessons related to gender identity, race relations, and other subjects deemed sensitive under the new policies. In addition, legal and professional risks. The enforcement of Executive Order 14190 includes provisions for investigating and prosecuting educators who are found to be in violation of its terms. Teachers could face legal consequences for actions such as acknowledging a student's preferred gender pronouns or providing counseling related to gender identity, which are now considered unlawful facilitation. Finally, there's a shift towards merit-based employment. The administration has proposed ending teacher tenure and advocating for merit-based employment system. This shift could impact job security and evaluation process for educators, emphasizing performance-based assessments over tenure. Well, are there any upsides to this? Well, yeah, more local control over education. With less federal oversight, states, school districts, and parents could have more say in what students are learning. This could lead to more customized curriculums that reflect local values and priorities. There's also a stronger emphasis on American civics and history. Supporters of the executive order argue that students will graduate with a deeper understanding of the Constitution, American government, and founding ideals. More focus on civic engagement could encourage students to participate in democracy and public service. There will also be a potential reduction in bureaucracy. Cutting federal oversight might streamline education policies, allowing schools to distribute funds without excessive red tape. Schools could have more flexibility to experiment with new teaching methods and approaches. Additionally, the merit-based teacher evaluations could reward educators for good practice. Instead of tenure-based job security, a performance-driven system could reward great teachers with higher pay and advancement. This could lead to a more competitive, motivated workforce within education. This situation is highly disruptive and could reshape the education system for decades. While some see opportunities for state-level control, civic education, and accountability, others fear the loss of funding, job security, and academic freedom. For teachers, the future may require adapting to new standards, navigating legal risks, and fighting for fair funding and academic freedom in their states. All right, that's it from me for now. Until next time, keep it real out there.
Thank you, Rachel, for showing us what education is facing today. As a future elementary school teacher, she's going to be dealing with a lot of young, impressionable minds. At this age, the media we're exposed to has an impact. For example, the portrayal of Disney princesses and the societal expectations surrounding them. So, there's a lot to unpack here. Disney princesses have historically been showcased in a specific way, but that's not realistic. So, let's unpack that.
Oh my goodness.
So, a lot of the early princesses, like Snow White, Cinderella, Aurora, reflected a lot of Eurocentric beauty standards with small waists, big eyes, delicate features. It hasn't changed too much, but that's what they kind of started out as, and had a lot of stereotypical gender roles, like Snow White only being accepted by the dwarves once she offered to cook and clean for them. And you know, some later movies like Ariel, that's not the movie, The Little Mermaid, Belle and Beauty and the Beast, they kind of had slightly more independence and power, but they were still very, like, the bodies were not, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
And like Ariel still was going for a man. Like she had a mission, but she's like, I need to get this man because he's gorgeous.
yeah. Like
They all still had the, you know, they were starting to be more diverse, but they still had the same body. Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know about you guys, but I mean, growing up, I don't know if I necessarily felt pressured by these bodies, by these princesses, but I was like, oh my God, they're perfect, they're beautiful. And I think that's definitely had more subliminal messaging than I realized, but in the moment I wasn't like, oh my God, I need to look like this princess. I don't know. But they definitely put a lot of pressure on young girls to look a certain way.
When I was little, I like loved the Disney princesses. I was a big fan of The Little Mermaid, like especially, and Belle. Although I didn't realize until I was a lot older that I only saw the Belle Christmas movie. I never saw the actual Beauty and the Beast until like years later.
That's funny.
Side note, it was always like so hard for me when I would really think about it. I'm like, no, there were no Latina princesses. And I always was like, can I not be a princess because I'm Latina and they don't look like me and they're all white? and then we had Tiana. I'm like, well, she's black. I'm not black either.
Yeah.
Like, what do I gotta do, man?
Yeah.
But I think that there's like another level of it, like on top of just like they're super teeny and they have the big eyes. Like I've always wanted to be like have those big Disney eyes. I don't have the big Disney eyes.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has the big Disney eyes.
Yeah, they're like the size of golf balls.
They're
it's
huge.
frightening.
Like entangled. They're like
Yeah.
your Rapunzel's eye, like
They're so pretty though.
yeah, they're half the size of her head.
Yeah. No, and it's just like all the proportions are so unrealistic.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, I guess the princesses didn't really have boobs, but like I guess like boobs, no waist, maybe a little bit of butt. Like
I think they had hips.
yeah, they had hips and like big eyes, long hair, except for Snow White maybe. But no one had acne.
Oh,
No.
their skin was flawless.
Skin was flawless.
They're like all teenagers too.
Teeth were perfectly
Perfect
white.
teeth, yeah. No gaps.
No gaps. Straight.
Anything that, well, and I feel like except for Moana, like any of like the moving a little away, any of the slightly more progressive princesses like Rapunzel still had a storyline around a guy, even though Rapunzel ended up saving Flynn when she wrapped her magic hair around him and was like, yeah, you're healed. But then, no, never mind, because Flynn ended up chopping her hair off to, like,
There's still like,
it's like,
and like even with like
Bro.
Frozen, there's still like Kristoff going on in there.
Yeah.
Like there's still some level of it involved.
I think originally Elsa was supposed to have a girlfriend, but then they were like,
Oh, that's from the second
no.
movie.
Oh, well, still, they were like, that's a little gay.
No lesbians here.
No.
Well,
But yeah.
I mean, they have to still get money, and things that get money are, you know, the body standards of, you know, they have to be like perfect and gorgeous into these standards, and that is what gets them that money.
But I remember hearing that they were also like really surprised like when Encanto came out, and it was like obviously they're not princesses, but Luisa specifically, they didn't expect her to be very like beloved by kids because she was very muscular, and they had to fight to let them put those muscles on her. And then little girls loved her. They're like, she's so strong and cool, and she's like a big sister, like that's awesome.
Yeah.
And they had to make more dolls because they were getting sold out because everyone wanted them. So it's like
Pop off.
it shows that people want this. We want to see like different body types, and we want to see strong women.
Yeah.
And like I also like that like for Luisa that she was still in a dress. Like she could like, you know, it didn't mean like just because she's really strong doesn't mean she has to like have like more masculine style or anything, like
Yeah.
and wear pants and stuff like that. She's still like
sure.
girly, she still cries, she still feels her feelings, and she's strong as hell.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting that like everything we've kind of wanted in a protagonist, like a not necessarily wanted, but like needed more representation of like a bigger body, different hairstyles, different like facial textures. Almost that's always in either the villain or the side characters, which is like, okay, so I exist in this world, but I can't be like someone's main attention. It's like, that's not fair.
No.
What am I doing?
It's like you're actually the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like it's
Ursula.
you can't win.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's a whole other story. I think villains are very misunderstood.
Yes.
But I don't know. That's
There's so much to say about
There's
this.
so
like,
much
you,
to say.
We could go
Like,
on
yeah.
forever.
they need to change. They need to do something.
I have like a whole rant about all
Yeah.
the being Sopranos as
It could
well.
be a whole other show. The representation in Disney movies has slowly started pushing through the roadblocks put in place. But it's hard to change what's been there for so long. And speaking of changing patterns, lately there have been a lot of pop artists who decided to take the country road. I have some mixed feelings about this, but what do you guys think? Personally, what comes to mind first is Beyonce's
Cowboy Carter.
Cowboy Carter. When that won album of the year, I was like, this is some bullshit.
Like she
That was not a
deserved
country
it for
album.
so many other albums too. Like it's like
Bro.
I'm not anti-Beyonce, but this album specifically, it wasn't giving
It wasn't a country artist.
I'm sorry.
I mean, album.
My whole family is from Texas.
Yeah.
I grew up on country music. So I was like, let me check it out, because one of my friends was saying like, this is a really good country album. You should listen to it. I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I don't really listen to country anymore, but
Yeah.
like, this is not a country album.
Yeah.
Like, it has, like, some influence,
Exactly.
but, like, that's almost like saying Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter is a country album, like, with songs like Slim Pickens and Coincidence. Like, it has the influence, you can have it.
But she's not a country
She's
artist.
not a country artist, it's still pop.
Yeah.
You just have that influence of it. It could still be Cowboy Carter, just not a country album.
Yeah.
Like,
For sure. And I think that when people brought those views up, it was like, oh, it's like surrounding the stigma of, like, you know, people of color not being able to be in the country genre, which isn't what I think people have been saying. I just think it's genuinely not a country album. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just like a fact that it's just like, woo.
I'm sure 100% that there is a level of it that is like people not wanting her in the space because she is a Black woman.
Yeah.
But there's also the level of, it's not really a country album. Like, I love you, girl. It's not.
I mean, hot take.
That's a really
She's
hot take. I think my
overrated.
best friend would
Oh,
actually
no,
kill
no.
me.
I was saying about myself, hot take, Beyonce's overrated. But anyway, apparently Ringo Starr released a country album
I did not know that.
this year titled Look Up.
So I like going from like that kind of rock vibe to country. Although I feel like some of the Beatles songs had a little bit of a like.
That makes a little
Like
more
when you think of
sense
like "Here Comes the Sun" or something like that.
Yeah.
But he didn't write those.
Okay, look. I'm trying to help him here. And then Chaperone had "The Giver," which she said she's not going fully into the country genre. She just wanted to like release a lesbian country song, which
Country song dressed up as a plumber.
badass.
I really respect that she wasn't like, you know, making this whole big change that a lot of artists do. It's just like, I just want to do this. And I think more artists should kind of branch out of their genre a little bit into new things, but also, you know, they don't have to be like, no, I'm this now. If you don't like this now, then you don't like me anymore, you know?
It's like just see what feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that you necessarily have to be boxed into a specific genre for the rest of your career if that's not what you want. I mean, I definitely think fan bases are used to certain things, and maybe when they branch out, it's like, what are you doing? But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know.
No. And then like making the switch is also like you have to. I think some artists need to just be more committed to making that switch. Like you got to go full into this genre if you're making this big announcement. They're like, I am now no longer a country artist. I'm a pop artist. Or vice versa.
Yeah.
Like I know like Taylor Swift's one album like Red was country, and then she went. I think it was 1989. Was the next one was like pop. And that was, you can tell the difference. That is a genre switch.
But she also kind of started.
Yeah, she started
country.
as a country
Yeah,
artist,
she started country and then she switched pop. So like, and you can see that progression and it makes sense. It's not just like, you know what? I've been singing pop for the past 20 years. Country time.
You know what? I've been a gangster rapper my whole life. It's time to put on my boots.
Get those boots on.
I'm curious that, like, I often hear people, you know, either they really love country or they're very against country. And I think, like, it's interesting to see that now more artists are kind of going into pop. And, or not, like, pop artists are going into country, and that, you know, like, if there's an artist that somebody who hates country really likes, you know, are they gonna kind of change their opinions about country? Because they're like, oh, maybe is it just a bias of, like, they have it in their heads that they hate country, or do they actually just hate country? Because that's completely, you know, it's up to personal taste.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely a possibility to branch the opinions, because I'm definitely a pretty big fan of some country artists, but others it's like, okay, this is just the dirt of Texas. I don't need it necessarily.
I don't need to hear about your beer in your truck anymore. Thank you.
But I don't know. I think it's interesting to see the progression of music. I think that is a beautiful thing, you know, for the most part. But that's all the time we have for you guys tonight. Thanks for everyone who watched. Make sure to tune in on April 17th for episode 4. I've been your host, Kelsey Stone. Until our next talk, keep it real out there, Newark. Bye.